Hello and welcome back to this channel. The next week that I spoke about in the last video has finally come, and so in today's video I will be answering that question that pertains to the first of the new factors that come into play as it relates to the scheduling of diversity visa interviews nowadays. Now let me just provide you with a little background concerning what I'm about to talk about. In a number of videos that I made during the months of October and November, I went about answering a number of questions that are referred to as traditional diversity visa applicants questions. Questions like, what are my chances of being scheduled for interview? When will I receive my interview notification? When will my interview be conducted? Etc. Those are the kinds of questions that diversity visa applicants generally ask, and for that reason I refer to them as traditional diversity visa applicants questions. And so as I answered those questions, I had to explain the conditions that cases must meet generally in the diversity visa program in order for them to be scheduled for interview. The first was that your DS-260 be submitted, which we said most cases have already achieved. And the second was that your case number becomes current. Now, under normal circumstances, when those two conditions are met, you are supposed to receive your interview notification. But that is not what many of you have experienced since interviews started in the month of October 2023. And then, speaking of that, I said in addition to those two conditions, which are generally the main conditions, there are a number of new factors that come into play because of two events that took place, one of those events being COVID-19. And someone happened to have asked me concerning those new factors, and then in the last video I said in a video this week I would explain the first of those factors. So that is what I'm going to do in this video. But before I go into that, be reminded concerning my diversity visa guidance program. If you are new to this channel and you are not aware, I have a diversity visa guidance program for applicants who are in need of guidance for their diversity visa application, but also those who are in need of having access to additional videos than what I post on YouTube. And in case you have questions that you need answers for, then my diversity visa guidance program is the best place for those questions to be answered and your concerns to be addressed. So just look below this video. The link leading to my diversity visa guidance platform is there. Click on that link and access the platform and subsequently join my diversity visa guidance program to have a smooth diversity visa application experience. So back to our discussion for today. In addition to submitting your DS-260 and your case number becoming current, what are the new factors that come into play that determine when your interview is to be scheduled, when your interview is to be conducted, what your chances are of being scheduled for interview in this year's program? That's what I'm going to answer in this video in response to a question that was asked me by a viewer of this channel. But what makes this question also important is that beginning next week, most discussions concerning the diversity visa program will be dominated by this factor, the factor that I'm about to explain. So, apart from you submitting your DS-260 and your case number being current, what is the first new factor that has come into play and that determines when your interview is to be conducted? And the answer to that question is the performance of your embassy. As I said earlier, beginning next week, that is going to be a dominant topic in diversity visa program discussion. So look out for it. Now, this is the explanation, the background explanation regarding that first factor. Before COVID-19, There was no discussion regarding embassies or the performance of various U.S. embassies. As long as a U.S. embassy was operating, that embassy conducted all kinds of interviews, including interviews for the diversity visa program. Now, when COVID-19 happened, it was left with the different embassies and consulates to determine whether they should continue normal operations or not based on the prevailing situation of COVID-19 where they are located. And so some of them continued interviewing diversity visa cases normally, whereas others slowed down operations, and in other cases, some ceased operations entirely. That was the beginning of the transition from what we refer to as the regional queue system to what is referred to as the embassy queue system. Those two systems are something that I'm going to cover in a video very soon. Now, after COVID-19, we thought that things would have returned to what they were previously. In other words, we thought that the two original conditions that cases had to meet in order for them to be scheduled for interview were the only ones that would have once again been considered in the diversity visa program. Unfortunately, even up to now, as we speak, the decision is still left with embassies to determine whether they interview diversity visa cases, whether they do not interview diversity visa cases, how many cases they wish to interview. All of that is still left at the discretion of the various embassies and consulates. And so when it comes to your case being scheduled for interview, it is no longer just because you submitted your DS-260. It is no longer only because your case number has become current. In addition to those two conditions that have been there from time immemorial, there is also the issue of the performance of embassies. If your interview is to be conducted at an embassy that has good performance, that interviews many diversity visa cases, then you have a better chance of being scheduled for interview as compared to someone whose case is assigned at another embassy that does not interview as many diversity visa cases. So the first of the new factors that I have been speaking about is the performance of the embassy where you are to be interviewed. And as I said earlier in this video, that is something that will dominate diversity visa discussions beginning next week, because as of January 1st, we will have access to the first SEAC data for the DV 2024 program. And that brings us to the end of this video. Thanks for watching it. See you very soon, God willing, in the next one. Until then, goodbye.